जय हिंद दोस्तों, मैं हूं मेजर मोहम्मद अली शाह and today I am truly honored and blessed. I feel so happy that I have a very illustrious guest जिनके साथ मैं गुफ्तगू में होऊंगा. Well, he has been a judge in the High Court for over a decade and a half. I would say he's been the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court. He is currently the chairman of the Ghalib Institute. He also, I mean, incident that's a different thing. He is the son of the former president of India, President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed Saab. Needs no introduction at all. He went to the best schools of the country in Shillong, in a convent school there. Thereafter, he went to St. Columbus in Delhi, and then and did his graduation from St. Stephen's, Delhi, and decided to pursue law, judiciary thereafter. And what made him take the right step, the right time? Let's come on and let's discover that with Justice Badar Gurrex Ahmed Saab. Sir, good morning, Jai Hind, and thank you very much for taking your time, sir.
Good morning and Jai Hind to you and to everybody else.
Sir.
And thank you for having me here.
Sir, thank you very much for consenting to be in conversation with me, sir. So let's talk about your early childhood, sir. So you were born in Shillong, and and thereafter you did your early schooling from Shillong, and Northeast is a beautiful place. So let's talk about your early childhood, sir. How was it like?
No, early childhood, as you said, I was born in Shillong, and initially I don't know, in those days probably it was the norm to send the child first to the girls' school for kindergarten. So I went to Loreto Convent, believe it or not, for a year or so, and then went on to Edmonds, St. Edmonds in Shillong. And in those days, Shillong was far less crowded than what it is today. The whole country is more crowded today. It was a wonderful place, and hills and very good climate, good weather, and we used to read a lot of these Enid Blyton books, and we identified with that weather because it was cool, cold, misty, and that's what it was in England in those days. So it was a very interesting childhood, and we had great fun.
Sir, let's talk about the time. I'm fast forwarding a bit when your father was the president of the country, and how was it being the president of India's son at that time, sir? Uh, though I know for a fact that your daughter Mahira told me that you had a very normal. There were no extra privileges given to you and such thing. But still, would like to know how was it from you, sir?
No, it was very exciting actually, because it was a new kind of life, a lot of focus and attention, and one had to be conscious and consciously avoid being sucked into people trying to be sycophants or whatever it is, and sucked into wrong deals, wrong type of acquaintances. So one had to be very conscious of that, and that's what my parents trained me right throughout. Beware of people, and I think I lived up to that. So that was interesting. But apart from that, I was in my second year in college in St. Stephen's College when my father became president, and so I was old enough to understand what it meant, etc. And of course, I was a very sporty sort of a person, so I got involved a lot in squash and tennis and cricket and all that. And all these facilities happened to be there in Rashtrapati Bhavan, so I took made full use of those facilities. And my friends and everybody who played those games were there with me. And so it was a good time. Apart from that, of course, I traveled with my father to a few state visits, went to Indonesia, and that was an eye-opener because one hadn't been that side of the world at all. So it was very interesting. Lot of good experiences. And of course, my father was, unlike the other presidents, he was quite a workaholic. So he kept working from morning till night. And, and of course, he played a lot of golf too in the mornings. And that's where I really got into the game of golf. So it was.
I've seen you.
Yeah,
I've seen you practicing chipping at Akbar Road at your house. And when
Okay.
we shared one common boundary wall, it was just a
Yeah,
common
yeah, yeah.
boundary wall separating your house and our house. That time we would
Yes,
see you practicing chipping in your big
yes,
lawn. And right now we have a virtual wall just between us. Zah,
yes,
Zah.
yes, yes.
Please go ahead, sir.
So it was a very interesting experience, and one got exposed to a lot of formality. A lot of formality like state banquets, meeting foreign dignitaries, and that was a very good exposure because it did help me in my life as a judge, how to be formal, how to be, you know, not be too open with people, things like that. So it was a good experience.
Zah. Sir, you are from the one of the best schools of the country. In fact, uh, after Mega, after Shillong, you came to St. Columbus, and St. Columbus has got very illustrious personalities. We know from our army itself, General Huda was in St. Columbus. There have been a lot of bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats, IAS officers from St. Columbus, but more popularly known as Shah Rukh Khan School. So,
Yes, yes. Of course, Shah Rukh
so,
Khan was much junior to me, much junior to me. He wasn't there when I was there.
sir, 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 how was it with the Irish brothers at St. Columbus, sir?
They were actually they were actually exceedingly good in the sense that they really took care of students. And our school timings were such that by 1:30 we were off because this is a day school. It's not a boarding school. So 1:30 we were off, but then we had sports after that, and those of us who were involved in sports like football, cricket, hockey, so we came back. In fact, some of us stayed back, some of us went home and came back for our games in the afternoon and evening. And these Irish brothers, they would come out again in shorts and t-shirt and with a whistle and referee the game or umpire the cricket match or whatever it is. So it was not just a relationship of teacher and student, but uh, a relationship, something more than that. And they were very dedicated. I must say that they were truly dedicated teachers. Of course, one or two of them were very strict. I mean, Columbus stories. There are many stories about Columbus where the teachers were very strict. And in the early days, I remember that there used to be caning also. But I
No.
suppose all that is over now. But in those days, it was the done thing in schools all over India. I suppose, not, even in the non-convent schools. And fortunately, I wasn't at the receiving end of caning on more than one or two occasions. So that's okay. But otherwise, they were dedicated teachers, exceptional teachers, and they took great care and interest in the scholastics as well as in your extracurricular activities like sports and all. Sports was a very big thing for them, and I remember that through their dedication and all, the my batch, I think out of 160 students, we had four sections. So out of 160 students, I think 130 got first divisions. So it was the top school at that time, but now I believe it's not not anywhere near the top, unfortunately.
Sir, after that you went to St. Stephen's College, and it was perhaps maybe the obvious choice for you at that time. I would like to know how come you decided to, what made you inspired to pursue judiciary as a career?
See, my father was a lawyer initially. Then he got into the freedom struggle. He was also Advocate General for Assam, and I saw all these books around. We had these books, all the law books, and of course, law was there at the back of my mind. But initially, when I was in school, I always wanted to become a scientist and a nuclear scientist. So I was a pure science student right up to school, and it was physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. So it was a pure science combination which I had. Something strange happened in one of my visits. My father was industries minister. I think I was in class 10 or 11. He took me along to Hyderabad. So there were some factories which he visited, and there was one IDPL and HAL and all those factories were there. So I met a scientist there, and he asked me, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a nuclear physicist." So he says, there is no career for nuclear physicists in India. I am a he. Then he pointed to himself and he said, "Look, I have done my PhD from United States, and I am in those days." I says, "You will start off with 200-300 rupees as salary, and you won't make anything." He really discouraged me, so I gave up the idea of pursuing a career in science and physics. And it so happened that I just took up the economics as my subject in college. And once I did, in fact, I remember when I went for my interview in St. Stephen's College for admission. So one of the professors, that is NC Ray, he asked me at that point of time. He says, "What do you know about economics?" Because I was a pure science student. I said, "I don't know anything about economics, but I've come here to learn." So I think that probably impressed them, and they gave me admission straight away. And after that, of course, after Stephens, I went on to Cambridge and did my tripos in economics from Trinity College, Cambridge. And at that time, the plan was that I would go to Cambridge and do my bar simultaneously, because that's how it used to be done. But unfortunately, when I landed up in England in 1975, 76, they had de-recognized the bar in India. So it was pointless for me to pursue the bar simultaneously with my economics tripos. And I took admission in law after my economics tripos for a law tripos, for a degree in law. But unfortunately, that year, 1977, my father passed away. And I came back to India, and my mother was struggling with a lot of property issues, emotional issues. So I decided not to go back to Cambridge, and I decided to stay here and give it a break for a year. Then what happened was that I met St. Stephen's College principal, Mr. Rajpal, somewhere in casually. And then he said, "Why don't, since you are here, why don't you teach in St. Stephen's College?" I said, "Great, I'll teach in." So I taught economics for 2.5 years in St. Stephen's College while I was doing my LLB in Delhi. So that's an interesting thing. I was correcting papers as well as giving exams in the same university.
Wow, sir. Wow, that is really interesting. So, I don't know if you would be aware, in 1977, one of my uncles, he was in the army as well. He retired from the army, Colonel Mir Ahmed Shah from the Armored Corps. In 1977, Captain Mir Ahmed Shah was appointed as the ADC to President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed. But then,
Okay.
of course, President
Ah,
Fakhruddin
he
Ali Ahmed,
passed away. He passed
he passed
away.
away.
Yeah,
Sir. So he couldn't join the appointment as the ADC, sir, that time.
great. Uh,
Sir.
where is he now? Where is your uncle now?
So he settled in Gurgaon. He stays in Gurgaon. He's
Okay.
busy playing golf. Sir.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Sir.
good.
Sir. Sir, would like to know, you have been a judge in the Delhi High Court for over a decade and a half, in fact. How was the experience there and the learnings you took from there when you went ahead as the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, sir?
See, Delhi High Court is the, if I may not sound too, you know, praising ourselves too much, is the premier court of this country. And it is really if you can call it, the jewel of the judiciary. And when I joined the Delhi High Court, uh, and from there we took it up another 10-15 years, it has really developed into a wonderful high court. And the you see, when I joined, there were only 22 judges in the Delhi High Court. When the sanction strength was much more, because a lot of people had retired, there were a lot of vacancies, so the workload was tremendous. There was a tremendous workload. On some days, I had to deal with over 150 matters, and you can imagine 150 matters in a space of 4 or 5 hours is absolutely backbreaking. And therefore, we had to sit for long hours. Unfortunately, you see, the people don't know what the judges have to go through. We have to sit in court in open public view from 10:30 to 4:30, of course, with a lunch break in between, and be concentrated on the ball all the time. You you can't waver from that. and lawyers will not let you waver from that. So you are fully concentrated for that period of time. After that, you correct the orders that you have passed. Then after that, you sit in chambers, you read up for the next day, you dictate orders, or or not or but or you have administrative duties also. We have many committees are formed, and you have meetings maybe lasting half an hour, 45 minutes. So it's not that what people think, that the judge comes at 10:30 and goes home at 4:30 and that's it. So it's a basically a 24/7 job, and it is quite backbreaking. I remember that I in the initial years, for many years, my summer vacations were spent writing judgments, not enjoying holidays, because they keep piling up, and that's the only time you do. So in your holidays, you are doing work. That is unheard of in any other profession. If you have a holiday, you have a holiday. But in our holidays, we do work. We work on Saturdays, we work on Sundays, and of course there are some of us who don't work at all. That's another matter. But the ones who work, that's in every profession. The ones who work, it's a back-breaking job, and it's not easy. So this kind of experience that we had in the Delhi High Court of high uh, high value cases, not just in terms of money, but in terms of social uh, you know effects and political effects, gave you a lot of exposure to life in general. And that, I think, that has what has trained me, at least, to take on the job as a Chief Justice.
Sir, in your 11th month as the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, you gave a landmark judgment. In fact, there was this gentleman, Mr. Subhash Chandra Sharma, if I'm not mistaken. He got a death sentence. You had pardoned him and you had saved his life. Could you just share some light on that if you would remember that?
Oh, if I don't know, I forget the name, but if that's the case you're referring to, it's a very interesting case. See, there was this man. This was towards the end of my tenure in Jammu and Kashmir. So a matter came up. I used to take up criminal matters also. So a matter came up, and one person got up and started to present his case. I said, "Where's your lawyer?" He said, "No, no, I don't want any lawyer. I will present my case."
Same case, same case. Yes, I'm referring to the
Same
same
case.
case.
So he was a lawyer. He himself was a lawyer, but he had been convicted and sentenced to, not for death, but to life imprisonment for the murder of his wife. And uh, I said, "All right, go ahead. Are you sure you will be able to present your case and you won't be emotionally overtaken by, I mean, you won't be overtaken by emotions, etc., etc.?" He says, "No, I will be able to present my case." And he did. And he argued exceedingly well, without any emotion, knew all the case law. Probably he had been preparing for this. He had been in jail for 18 years.
Oh God. Oh God.
and and the appeal was not being heard. This is what happens with our system in India, where there is so much workload that cases don't get heard in time. Anyway, so he started arguing, and he argued his case. Then of course the prosecutor also argued his case. And when I examined the whole matter while the arguments were going on, I found that this man is actually innocent. He did not murder his wife. His wife had an accidental death, and he was unnecessarily hauled up into it. So I had only one day left of my tenure there. And having heard the case, I started dictating in open court. And I acquitted him right there and then. And then the most interesting part is this, that I told him, "Okay, now you can go home. You are free to go. You don't go back to jail." He was in jail. So he says, he was hesitating. I said, "Why are you hesitating? You are a free man. You've been acquitted. The order has been passed. I'm going to sign it straight away, the order." Then he said, "Okay, can I go back to jail?" I said, "Why the hell do you want to go back to jail?" He says, all my friends are there. So I have to say goodbye to them. So he actually went back to jail for the night,
Oh,
and the next day he got released.
oh
This,
God, sir.
and it so happened that since he was a lawyer, he had become their advisor and counsel for all the inmates there who wanted his advice, etc. So he was a very popular figure there. But this is an interesting case.
Very interesting, sir. Very interesting. Wow. And this reminds me of my boarding school days or academy days. You know, when you are parting away from your friends and you want to. I thought I was trying to guess that perhaps his toiletries are there or his clothes are
No,
there or
no,
his
no, no,
belongings are there.
no, no. He was interested in saying goodbye to all his friends. He was
That
there for
is
18 years.
sir,
Yeah.
that is really emotional. So that's very very emotional. Imagine spending 18 years in prison
But
and
at
when
the same,
finally when
in fact, what happened was that, you see, he also said that those are my family because my family is ruined. Wife was dead, children have been taken away by other relatives. I have nobody. So he said, that's my family. And that is why he wanted to go back to meet them. And of course, after that, I heard from some lawyers in Jammu that he has rejoined his practice in law. And probably he'll get a lot of cases because he won his own case, I suppose.
absolutely sir, and then the experience that he had of 18
Yeah.
years there. 18 years में तो इंसान बच्चा से adult बन जाता है. He gets voting rights and driving license.
It's actually one of the tragedies of our system in India is the criminal justice system, where innocent people are hauled up in jails, and you can never return them that time, never. And that is why I always told in judicial academies as well as in conversation with other fellow judges and judges of the district judiciary, that when you send a person to jail, be dead sure that he has done it. Otherwise, don't send him to jail. You can't return him those years, even those hours or minutes. Nobody can be incarcerated for no crime for a crime that he has not committed.
Very, very true, sir. Very true. So it must be a very, very emotional moment for just like anyone who retires after so many years of serving the country in their own way, and after hanging up your boots from the judiciary. How was the last day wearing your the judge attire like, sir?
Well, you see, you know that you're going to retire, so you are prepared for it. And unlike what many people do, I worked till the last minute. I was hearing cases, deciding orders till the last minute. So I did not think about what is going to happen after this. And I think that I got a lot of love and respect from my colleagues, from the bar, and believe me, even from the litigants, I got many letters thanking me for you know for doing justice. And that is, I think, the biggest reward that you can get is when people think that here is a judge who has done justice. And I think I feel that I did that.
We are very proud of you, sir. Very, very proud of you. Sir, how has it been as the chairman of the Ghalib Institute? And could you tell us a bit about the Ghalib Institute?
Yes. See, in in the 1960 late 60s, there was a idea mooted essentially by my father, and also agreed to by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, that there should be a Ghalib centenary, because Ghalib was one of our greatest poets in India, and his centenary was coming close, 1869, so 1969. So there was centenary celebrations, and my mother was also involved in that. Lot of film stars, festivals, and it was a huge show. And after that, they realized that why not start an institute by the name of Ghalib for academic and cultural activities. And so that's how the Ghalib Institute came into being. A trust was formed. Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the chairman of the trust. My father was the secretary of the trust. And there were very, very distinguished and notable members of society who were the other trustees. So it went on like that. So as a child, I kept, being involved in the sense of a spectator along with my mother mostly. And ultimately, after my father's death, after Indira Gandhi passed away, then my mother became the chairman of the trust, and Dr. Manmohan Singh was a trustee when he was finance minister. He was a trustee of the Ghalib Institute, and we had very distinguished lot of people as trustees. Ultimately, the it came to me. So ultimately, I became the chairman of Ghalib Institute when my mother passed away after many years. After many years, I was the secretary. So I kept taking more interest in Ghalib Institute, and it has done wonders actually. Ghalib Institute comes out as the premier academic institution on for research in Ghalib, and we have a museum. We have uh, a magazine which comes out, a literary magazine, not a commercial sort of a magazine, a literary magazine carrying literary articles in Urdu. We publish a lot of books, and we have lately started also publishing books with Urdu language but in Devanagari script, because what I found was that many people understand the language Urdu, and in fact, most people in Delhi speak Urdu or Hindustani, whatever you may say it, but they cannot read the Urdu script, the Persian script. So therefore, we thought that why not produce these books with Devanagari script so that it is accessible to everybody. And what is interesting is that Ghalib's Diwan, which is printed in the Devanagari script, sells like hotcakes, because all the scholars, etc., of course, they want to read it, but mostly the younger people who want to do share shairi with their beloved, they always they have access to it. So rather than read an English translation, which doesn't carry the same sense as what it was in Urdu, they can read it in Devanagari and express their emotions in whichever way they want. So it has this. I think this is an experiment which will succeed, because it will keep the language alive and also be accessible to the masses, because Devanagari is being read by most people in North India. So it'll be accessible to them, and
जी,
that is why I feel that Ghalib Institute has done great service to not only preserve our traditional traditions and culture, but also our language. And by the way, people have a mistaken impression that Urdu is a foreign language. Urdu is only spoken in India, and just because Pakistan adopted it as their official language, it doesn't mean that the language belongs to them. The language belongs to India.
very well said, sir. Thank you for clarifying this to all of viewers. And when it comes ahead from someone of your stature, I'm sure it has a lot of weight and a lot of people will listen to it. Thank you for bringing that out. That's something which I have been saying for a very, very long time to a lot of people, even on news channels. But when it comes out from you, it really, really, and that too from the chairman of Ghalib Institute, it really, really means a lot, sir. So, when you said people would write to their or present something to their beloved, उसमें मेरे को एक गालिब साहब का एक खुतूत याद आया है. एक खुतूत तो कई सारे मेरे जहन में मैं ज़बानी याद किए थे. एक मैं आपको in your honor, sir, and in the honor of Ghalib Institute, I would like to recite one letter from Mirza Ghalib. He written a letter to, so which Mirza Tafta, he had written a letter to Mirza Tafta, his very close age. And जब मिर्जा तफ्ता की अहलिया का इंतकाल हो जाता है, तो वो ताज़ियत में खत लिखते हैं. तो वो क्या लिखते हैं उस खत में? वो लिखते हैं, गम ना खाओ, जो ना जान ना सही मुन्ना जान से. जब मैं बहिश्त का तसव्वुर करता हूँ और सोचता हूँ कि अगर मगफिरत हो गई, एक कष्ट मिला और एक हूर मिली, अकामत जावेदानी है और उसी नेक बख्त के साथ बरदानी है. इस तसव्वुर से जी घबराता है और कलेजा मुंह को आता है. हाय हाय वो हूर अजीरन हो जावेगी, तबीयत क्यों ना घबरा. Yeah. होश में आओ, कहीं और दिल लगाओ. This is what Ghalib Saab, he had a very wicked sense of humor, Mirza Ghalib Saab.
Yeah.
And uh,
Ghalib was a genius, and
genius,
the
absolutely.
amount of
In
work
fact,
that has been done on him is unbelievable. And
absolutely.
they are still discovering, these scholars and all. It's a treat actually to sit surrounded by these scholars of all ages, some middle age and some older age scholars. And when they start
Absolutely.
discussing, it is a treat to hear their discussions. And
Absolutely.
Ghalib, of course, but he was quite mischievous also, at times. You see, he had वो एक वो होता है जिससे कि एक यू राइट समथिंग एंड उससे तारीख निकल आती है. यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट?
Yes,
You write something in words, and it actually represents a date, like a date of birth or a date of something. So he was very good at it, and he was also very good at making genealogical tables.
right, right.
So one of his relatives said, "You are very good at this, so please do this for me." So he did it. Then he realized that a lot of people were coming to him, asking him to make these genealogical tables, etc. And he was not interested in it at all. He was more interested in his sher shairi or whatever it was. So he purposely made mistakes in the in the table, so that they say कि अरे ये तो बिल्कुल बेकार आदमी है, इसे कुछ नहीं आता, ये सब गलतियां करता है. So they got rid of them. So he was mischievous also in that way. He was highly intellectual, and I would say he was a genius. I mean, he couldn't do anything other than that. He was a genius. He was a born genius.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, Lieutenant Colonel Faiz, Ahmed Faiz Saab, after 1947, after the partition, he went off towards Pakistan. And when he was exiled, sir, in 1951, when he left Pakistan, when Liaquat Ali Khan, the first Prime Minister of Pakistan, was assassinated, he went up to Yugoslavia and such things and other countries. He wrote he would sleep with Diwane Ghalib next to his bedside. And Faiz Ahmed Faiz Saab was himself a very, very big fan of Ghalib Saab. And I remember seeing this serial on Doordarshan by Gulzar Saab, which my uncle Nasir Saab
Yes,
had
yes,
played
yes.
Mirza Ghalib in it.
The only complaint I have about that serial are his creaking shoes. Why couldn't they do something about the shoes?
It's a very good observation, sir. Very, very good observation. Very true, sir. Very true. Sir. And the relative you were referring to on who had requested Mirza Ghalib Saab to write that, if I'm not mistaken, it was Nawab Alai, his wife's nephew. And जब उन्होंने नवाब अलाई को वो खत लिखा था, मियाँ मैं बड़ी मुसीबत में हूँ, महल तेरा की दीवारें गिर गई हैं, तुम्हारी पप्पी कहती हैं हाय दबी हाय मरी, दीवान खाने का हाल महल तेरा से बदतर है, मैं मरने से नहीं डरता, फुकदाने राहत से घबरा गया, छत छलनी है, अब 2 घंटा बरसे तो छत 4 घंटे बरसती है, अगर तुमसे हो सके तो भाई से मुझको वो हवेली जहाँ मीर हसन रहते थे और कोठी में से वो बड़ा खाना में दरा जहरी जो इलाही बख्श मरहूम का मस्कन था, मैं रहने को दिवा दो. गालिब यक शंबा 27 जुलाई 1862.
You have a tremendous memory, Major Shah. And let me tell you this: Nawab Alauddin Alai was from Loharu. Ghalib. So my dadi's lineage is Loharu. My wife's lineage is directly from Loharu.
Of course, I'm well aware, sir. Sabah Appa, in fact, Saman Appa and Irfan Bhai, I used to go to the house in Mumbai very often in Bandra and have a meal with them occasionally. And so,
So
of
it
course,
was
I
a
mean,
very tragic loss that Irfan passed away due to cancer. Very tragic loss. But let me tell you one thing: since you all are from a family of people going into the army, even my dada was in the army. He was a lieutenant colonel. He was a doctor, but he was in the army medical corps. The first Indian to be in the army medical corps.
oh, wow. Oh, so I did not know this. So this
Yes.
part I had missed out. So, in fact, if you see Dr. written over here next to my name, that is because I had done a lot of research on you, in fact, before approaching you, before messaging you. So, I thought I knew quite a bit. But this part, honestly, I did not know he was the first Indian to go into the AMC. So, what was his name, if I may ask, please?
Zunnur Ali Ahmed, Colonel
Sir,
Zunnur Ali Ahmed. And
sir,
he
sir.
and you people get shocked when I say the date of birth of my dada. It was 1848. So now that is amazing, because he married at 50, when he was 50, and my father married when he was 40. So 90 years went by in bachelorhood. That's why my grandfather is 1848. I say that no living person has a grandfather who was born in 1848.
Sir, 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 I love your sense of humor as well, by the way, sir. Sir, it's been such a pleasure and so wonderful being in conversation with you, sir. And thank you so much for taking our time. Truly grateful and indebted, sir. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. Thank
Jai
you.
Hind, sir. My regards to everyone at home.
Jai
Jai
Hind.
Hind.
Thank you.
Thanks.